today we took ownership of our new camper van. And after 10,000 miles and quite a few trips, we've learned a few lessons and a few tips that I'd like to pass on to you today. Now, as luck would have it, our van is actually at the shop. We've taken it back to the dealer to try to figure out what is wrong with our Dometic 3-way refrigerator. And they also told me that someone else is in the shop at the same time with the same problem. I hope they'll be able to figure it out because it just doesn't keep food at a temperature that would keep it from spoiling. And it doesn't seem to matter so much about what the outside temperature is. It just, it can get to 50 degrees and it can only be 65 degrees outside. So hoping they'll figure that out. So the first lesson is kind of along those lines. When something goes wrong, do you have your manuals with you? We at first didn't carry the manuals, and when we had a problem, we would struggle to find something online. So we now carry the manuals with us, and we can look things up. Especially with all these new electronics and things, solar panels, stuff like that, you really need to be able to look at that as the issues arise. I remember the first time we drove it out on our first trip, and couldn't figure out how to turn the water pump on. So I had to call the dealer. Felt really stupid. The second tip, which you probably have heard from other RVers many times, is to do the walk around to make sure that you get out of your rig every time you're leaving a campground to make sure you haven't left anything. Well, we've modified that slightly. Anytime we stop anywhere and take anything out of the rig, we do a walk around. We learned the hard way because we filled up, because the refrigerator has never worked properly, we bought an ice chest, a really nice expensive one to keep ice for many days. And we pulled it out and filled it with ice at a grocery store and drinks, and then promptly left it. And then when we called up later, it was not there. So then we started the walk around, but sometimes one time around by one person isn't quite enough. We have since that time left a pair of gloves and left a nice foldable camping table. So we implemented the two-person walk around where we both walk around the vehicle before we leave, and it's a good thing because we almost left a campground once by leaving the surge protector on a table, and that would have been a very expensive loss. The third tip is a pack thin tip, and I've covered a little bit of this in a previous video about packing and clothes you take. But just to give you an example, here is a selection of 3 pair of pants and 3 t-shirts. One is made out of your traditional kind of heavy fabrics, and the other is made out of the more, the more man-made fibers and things like that can be quite thin. And so you can see how much thinner you can get your clothing, and which means you can either take more, you'll have more space if you focus on making sure you have thin materials in your clothing. Number 4 is less food. Take less food and just plan to stop more frequently so that you don't have to take up space with food. But also, when you buy food, repackage it. I go to the extreme of removing cardboard boxes. So like cereal boxes take up a lot of space and there's a lot of air in there. So I take them out, and then I use these clips. These, I think they're called clip sticks, and I'll put a link below so you can see them. They're about $9 on Amazon. You get 16 in a box. They come in different sizes. This is the second to the largest. But they are great because because they don't spill, basically. So you can put even liquids in there and the liquids won't spill. So I love these things, and anything that gets open that can take one of these gets it on there. So it helps to save a lot of space. And of course, as you eat the food, then you're reducing the size of that package. Okay, next tip, I think is number 4. And that's that every drink gets a lid. Another lesson learned after our very first trip, because I asked John if he would like a lid for his coffee, and he declined. and we took off up the street, and the coffee cup, all of its contents spilled down onto the brand new carpet, and needless to say, it was quite a mess. So we've now removed carpet from the back. We have no carpet in the back of the vehicle at all anymore, and all the drinks get a lid on them. Another thing we learned in the RV is that the water pump, especially for us light sleepers, the water pump can come on and cycle occasionally in the night. Sometimes it does it and sometimes it doesn't. I haven't figured it out. But before we go to bed, always turn off the water pump and make sure all of the LED lights that shine from different ports are covered up with black tape, and that the screen is covered up with its black felt cover. Okay, I think I'm up to tip number 7, which is think about leaving your bikes at home. We took our bikes on our 6-week trip and hardly used them at all. I think it's partly the way we are traveling, because we're not staying in campgrounds more than two or three nights. You just don't have the opportunity. Also, the weather interfered. We had snow, we had rain, and that wasn't conducive to riding our bikes. So we've decided for our next trip in the fall, when we go to the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta and the RV Nomad movie premiere in Wellington, Texas, we are going to get a box and put some of the items, some larger items, into a box. It'll allow us to take warmer clothing and a few other things that we would like to have along with the trip. But the bikes just weren't used, and so why hassle them? In fact, in Glacier National Park, there was one road where we actually had to remove the bikes and the rack because it exceeded the 21-foot limit that they would allow you on one of the roads. And you had to be under 21 feet, and that kind of just barely bumped over the 21 feet, and they were really particular about that. They actually measured your vehicles as you came in the gate. The next one is take a big bag of quarters and also plenty of $1 bills. The campgrounds now are, they range from anywhere from $2.50 up to, $20, $30, $40, $50. But in the national parks especially, and the national forests, when you're cutting that in half because you have a senior pass, then you might have to, you run into needing change. And you might have a situation where you need three $1 bills and 50 cents and a 10. So make sure you have change, but especially the $1 bills and the quarters. We probably took $50 to $60 in quarters with us. They're also come in really handy at the public showers and the laundromats, and then you don't have to worry about finding a change machine that works or a store that will give you change. Okay, so speaking of campgrounds, another thing that you run into is remembering your pass number, your senior pass number, and also your license plate of your car, because the envelopes you fill out, you have to enter that information. So I took a page from a label package that I had, and on one half of the label, I put the license plate number of our car, and on the other side the pass number, so when I go up to fill out the campground envelope, I don't have to remember any numbers, and I can just stick it on there and not have to worry about it. And then the last tip really is a no-brainer. I'm sure you've heard this many times, but avoid national parks in the summertime. I don't think we'll ever want to go through that again. We were in Yellowstone in early July, or no, it was late June anyway, and the crowds were unbelievable. There were too many parking lots we couldn't even get into, let alone find a place to park. We were glad to have the shorter rig because that did save us a few times, but why even hassle it? If you can go in the shoulder season or the winter time if they're open, then that's the time to go, and avoid the parks because you just won't have an enjoyable experience. So those are the tips I have for you today. On Tuesday, I'm headed off to Vermont. I may or may not upload a video from Vermont, but either way, I will see you when I get back, and thanks for watching. Oops.
But the rainbow it's a big one.
So this is the
that
I think that's the rainbow,
yeah.
And this is the golden.
That's the brown.
Oh, the brown. Okay.
Yeah, golden trout is about 4 or 5 inches long.
Oh.
And they look like a goldfish.
Probably difficult to eat. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.